What is up, guys? My name is Ben Hartwell. Thanks for checking out the channel. If it's your first time here, or even if it's not, please consider smashing that subscribe button. It really does help out the channel. So I have got a band gig coming up in a couple of weeks with a really hard-hitting drummer, so I thought it was a really good opportunity to take the Marshall out and crank it nice and loud. That means that I also need to build a brand new pedal board. As a lot of you know, I have been using just a Helix plugged into a power cab, and I don't really want to use the Helix for this gig. I want to get all my old pedals out and build a brand new board. So I've already figured out what pedals it is that I'm going to need. I'm going to need the control board for the JVM. It's pretty massive and takes up a lot of room on a pedal board, but it's so useful with the JVM being able to store the different settings for each channel. I'm going to take a bog standard TS9, great for just pushing amps when you need that little bit more overdrive, perfect for solos. I'm going to take my Sir Riot pedal, just because it's awesome. I need the SP compressor for some of the clean stuff that I'm going to be doing, and the Boss CE5 chorus ensemble, again for clean stuff. I need a Phase 90 for some Van Halen tunes that we'll be doing. I'm going to take the Timeline to fulfill all my delay needs, because again, it's amazing. And then I'm in two minds whether I might stick the HX Stomp on there, just so I can do extra bits of reverb or any other effects that I'm not covering with the single pedals. But I just need to see when everything's hooked up if it's going to introduce a lot of noise into the signal path. If it doesn't, then it can stay on the board. But it's something I'm going to have to try out. So those are all the pedals that I'm going to use. The next thing that the pedal board has to do is to fit in the flight case that my Helix is currently in. So I've already cut a piece of MDF to the exact size of that pedal case, and I've also added a strip of MDF that's going to elevate up another pedal that I'm going to use. This is the Gig Rig Quartermaster. It's a 6-loop pedal switcher, and it means by using this it keeps the signal path really clean, as we're only ever kicking in the pedals as and when we need them, and when we don't need them they're completely taken out of the signal path, meaning that I'm not getting any signal degradation from those pedals, which means that I can use things like that old TS9 because it's not going to be affecting the tone when the pedal's not engaged. So that's everything that I'm going to use. Let's work out layout. Okay, so I've got a layout that I think is going to work pretty well. I've got the JVM controller at the front so I can do all my channel switching really easily. That elevated strip with the Quartermaster on behind the controller is going to let me have really easy access to all the pedals that are going to be in those loops. I've got the Timeline down at the front left, and the HX Stomp is fitted on really easily, so I'm going to see what it's like noise-wise and then decide whether I'm going to keep it on the board or not. So that's the layout pretty much sorted. Next job, cabling it up. I have a load of LARP cables that have previously been used on other pedal boards that I've made, so I'm going to repurpose these cables. And as you can see, I'm using the Dunlop power brick to save a bit of space on the pedal board. So I'm going to use the 9-volt cables that came with that to power the majority of the pedals. The only things that I'm going to have to power with their own power supplies are the Timeline, because it needs loads of power, and obviously the HX Stomp. So let's get cabling. Okay, so as you can hopefully see, I've got the initial wiring done, all power and audio. Got the foot control for the JVM and the Quartermaster. This cable here is going to go to the wah that will be off the pedal board, and that's going to be the power lead for it. We've got the SP compressor, Tube Screamer, Riot, Phase 90, there's the DC brick. That's the Synco, which is the in and out for the board, so that I can have 5 in and 5 out. I'm only going to be using 4. The first one is for the foot switch, so that comes back down and into the foot switch. That cable goes off to the amp. Then I've got the one that will be the front of the amp, so that's all the pedals that are going to be in the front, which is the Boss, the Phase 90, the Riot, the Tube Screamer and the SP compressor, all going through the Quartermaster. So that comes out of the Quartermaster into there and into the front of the amp, and then there's the send and return, which will be the Timeline and the HX Stomp. All wired pretty loose at the moment, nothing's kind of fastened down and all the pedals are loose. So the next thing to do is to do an initial power and sound test, see if everything first turns on and to see if we've got signal through all the pedals. So let's give it a try. Okay, so everything's connected up. We seem to have power to everything, which is good. So first, let's see if we've got signal coming from the effects send and return so that I can tune. We have. Okay, so all the pedals that are in the gig rig are turned on, but they're all bypassed via the gig rig. Everything in the effects loop is off. We're going straight into the quartermaster, which is then going straight out to the Synco and into the front of the amp. So this is effectively just plugged straight into the clean channel. And we have sound. Awesome. So let's see if the channel switching works. There's a crunch channel. OD1. OD2. Boost is working, switching between the masters. So we should have compression on 1. Cool, that's working. Tube screamer should be on 2. I think that's a dead cable somewhere, so we'll find that. Riot should be on 3. Phase on 4. And chorus on 6. Cool, so everything in front other than the tube screamer is working. Let's try some delay in the loop. Cool. Let's try add in some reverb on the helix. Just add in a whole reverb. That works. Now the one thing that I do want to check is that the helix isn't adding too much noise when we're on some higher gain stuff. So OD1. So there's a really easy way I can do it with the JVM to see if that's introducing any more noise, is I can disable the effects loop from the front of the JVM. So this is with the effects loop on, that's with the effects loop off. If anything, there's a little bit more noise with it turned off. Just turn the reverb on. Bit of delay. Okay, that all seems to be working. Let's find out what's wrong with that tube screamer. Okay, day 2. So the problem with that tube screamer was just a faulty cable, so I just changed that out, redid the cable, and now it all seems to be working fine. So I've tidied up the cables as much as I can. Everything has been fastened down, all the cables have been cable tied and fastened in place. All the pedals have been attached to the board with dual locks, so they're all nice and firmly attached, so they're not moving anywhere. So here is how the board is looking right now. I've tried to keep it as clean as possible, as I do want to use this board for a few different gigs. So I've tried to keep the cable runs to a minimum, keep them nice and tidy, really trying to minimize any point of failure and anything that could potentially go wrong, which with the pedal board is usually cables. I'm not super happy with the way that I've had to do the power on this board. It probably would have been better to build some feet into the board to lift it off the ground a little bit. That way I could put the power supply under the board and run all of those 9-volt cables underneath. It would have kept it a little bit cleaner and it would have given me a little bit more space on the board if I wanted to put another pedal or two in. But for now it's fine, and I probably will end up changing out that power supply for something else in the future anyway. As I said, the helix fit on the board really easily and it doesn't seem to be introducing any noise into the signal flow. So it's a really good option there to have other sounds that haven't got on those individual pedals. The quartermaster is raised up just enough on that extra piece of MDF to get over the top of the foot switch for the JVM, so that's really easy access now for turning on all those individual pedals. I've got the timeline down at the front left, so I've got really easy access to the tap tempo and turning on that delay. Where the helix is a little bit of a pain to get to just because of how that chorus pedal sits just in front and is quite high, so it makes getting to the foot switches a little bit difficult. But for the amount of time it's probably going to get used in a gig, it's not really an issue. And because that HX Stomp acts as my backup helix for other gigs that I do, I need to be able to remove it really easily from the board. And because I need to remove it really easily, the helix is the one pedal that's not actually fastened down to this board. So that's the way that the board is looking. Let me show you how it sounds. So here is a lesson on why it's really important to be testing your audio and your power on your board as you're building it. When I did the initial power on and playthrough, everything seemed fine. But when I've come to do a critical listen, everything was okay on the first two channels, but then when I got to OD1 and OD2, I had this really annoying, loud electrical buzz. So after a load of troubleshooting, I narrowed it down to the power supply and a dodgy cable coming from the quartermaster to the Synco, which goes to the front of the amp. So I've redone the cable, I've swapped out the power supply for my Voodoo Labs Pedal Power 2 because I know that that power supply is fine. I've redone all the power cables. It has been a bit of a pain because it's meant redoing a big chunk of the board, but it actually puts the helix in a much better spot, and it means that I can get to those foot switches much easier than I could before. So now that all that has been recabled and redone, I can show you how the board sounds. So there you go, what do you think? I'm really happy with how this board's turned out. I've tried to keep it as clean and simple as possible so there are as few areas as possible that could go wrong on the board. I've just really tried to focus on what it is that I need to get these few gigs done. So it's not an overly complicated board, there's not loads and loads of pedals. It is a touch more complicated than other boards that I've done in the past because I'm using that Quartermaster to do the loops for all the other pedals rather than just running everything in the chain. But I think the sound is so much better when you do that because you're not losing anything by running through all those extra pedals. I really do love the JVM, and so being able to control it with the foot switch and have the pedals and be able to use the loop is just perfect for me. And I think it sounds really good. So the next thing to do with this board is to take it down to rehearsal in about a week and see how it actually performs at gigging volume. I don't think I'm really going to experience any problems though because I'm running the JVM louder in this room via the reactive load than I will be at rehearsal. So any noise issues I should have already experienced. And touch wood, it seems pretty quiet. So there you go guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you enjoyed watching me build this new pedal board for 2022 for this few run of band gigs that I've got coming up. If you want to know any more about the board that I didn't actually cover in the video, let me know in the comments below. If you did enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to watch another video on my channel, you can click just here. Don't forget to subscribe, you can do it right there. I'll see you in the next one.